the story of MOTANG RUA's resistance to the Dutch. This happened when the Dutch established a civil military government in Manggarai land in the early 20th century. Dutch troops arrived in Manggarai in 1908. They sailed from India and landed in Borong. The arrival of the Dutch in this small town, which is now the capital of East Manggarai Regency. From Borong, the Dutch then continued their journey along the coast of the South Sea to Tuduh, one of the work centres located on the south coast of Manggarai. The Netherlands wants to establish a civil military administration centre in Tuduh. However, because of Tuduh's hilly topography, the Dutch were looking for another, more suitable place. A number of places were chosen, namely Malawater Lemba, Kenkar and Puni Routing. In the plan, the Dutch wanted to inaugurate the administrative administration of the Manggarai colony on July 31, 1909, to coincide with the Dutch Royal Day. Of the various alternative places that were used as the centre of government. Finally, Puni Routing was chosen. The Dutch also began to build houses and offices. However, it was not the Dutch themselves who built the government facilities, but the people of Manggarai. The Dutch ordered the people of Manggarai to bring reeds for roofing and other building materials. This arbitrary treatment was not accepted by MOTANG RUA, who at that time was the head of Biokina village. MOTANG RUA then consolidated power. He invited a number of people to fight back, such as Esa Ami Bembang, Padang Ami Naga, Naga Ami Dimong, Lapa Ami Sampu, Angko, Rumbang, Tinga Ami Jurong, Sadu Ami Pound died at Sawa Lanto's disposal, Numpang Ami Tilik, and Ula. Strength from a number of Kedalian were also gathered, such as from Kedalian Lilak there were Pasi Ami Ramai, and Garang Rombing Richeng, and Daring Ami Durang. From Kedalian Ndioso there is expert Ami Jaga. From Kedalian Endis there is Raja Ami Kasang Gampang Liak. From Kedalian Routing there are Gorang Karib, Tangu, Kilang Laib, and Wakul. He also invited his own brothers and sisters, namely Rangang Lalong Ella, Parang Ami Pangang. People's strength was mobilized to build Fort Ku and boycott other people, who came from the areas of Lilac, Ndioso, Kolang, and Rahong, so as not to send building materials and food to the interests of the Dutch in Routing. The reeds, fibres and beams are cut into pieces and then sent to Routing. For this treatment, the Dutch ordered a special courier named Japa Ami. Arriving at Wakong, Japa Ami beat a person named Andak, a reed carrier. Because of the beating incident, MOTANG RUA killed the special envoy. The Dutch soldiers were furious. The Dutch then summoned Dale Passa, Sessa Ami Bemben to Puni Routing on July 31, 1909. Through this Dale Passa, the Dutch ordered MOTANG RUA to face the Dutch. Instead of facing, MOTANG RUA instead challenged. We will not submit to the Dutch until we die, and we will not surrender this land to the Ngara white people. That was more or less the challenge MOTANG RUA gave him back then. The Dutch did not remain silent. An expedition armed with 12 carbines was launched to Biokina, where MOTANG RUA was. However, MOTANG RUA's troops confronted the Dutch soldiers in Gola Esuo near the Santa Claus school. As many as 10 Dutch soldiers were killed and their weapons were confiscated. Meanwhile, as many as 2 people fled into the ravine, namely Dong and Jakob. From inside the ravine, they fired their guns so that 2 of MOTANG RUA's friends, namely Rumbang and Ula, were killed. The Dutch then asked Endi and Kupang for help. Dutch troops from Endi, led by Lieutenant Sependa, arrived in Routing at midnight on August 9, 1909. After the Dutch troops arrived, the attack on Biokina was launched again with careful planning. On August 10, 1909, there was a battle at Fort Kuwatu between Dutch soldiers and MOTANG RUA troops. The Dutch troops came from the south of Routing way Lerong Chuk Nikit and arrived at Ku. The Dutch force with modern equipment destroyed MOTANG RUA's army in an instant. Some of those who died from MOTANG RUA's troops at that time were Latu, Santang, Korak, Unduk, Rampak, Chupi Meliaba. Motang Rua with the surviving troops retreated to Kina. Arriving at Kina, Motang Rua raised a white flag Tantor Bakok as a sign of submission. Because there was a sign of submission, Kina's village was not burned by the Dutch. Meanwhile, several villages around Kina, such as Kondong, Lenting and Perna, were burned down by the Dutch. Furthermore, Motang Rua waged a guerrilla war. He took the fight from the Kankaween cave in Raka, Indonesia. As a result, a war broke out against the Wetic troops led by the Renga Army Sensis troops. Another resistance also occurred in Longkapaka under the leadership of Dala Makangpaka. In that battle, 35 People's Fighters were killed, including Makangpaka, whose head was beheaded by the Dutch and brought to Rio to be shown in front of the people. The Dutch were furious and wanted to get Motang Rua both alive and dead. The Dutch took hostage and tortured Adak Ponko's family in Puni Routing. The Dutch threatened to exterminate the entire Adak Ponko family, accusing them of being war criminals. It should be noted, Motang Rua is the anak winner of Adak Ponko. Motang Rua's mother, whose name is Wakom, is the sister of Adak Ponko, Kraying Wanga Laki Teki Laki Mangia. Facing this Dutch threat, Kraying Wanga Laki Teki Laki Mangia reacted. On the initiative of Kraying Baso, one of Kraying Wanga's sons, a search was made for Motang Rua. Kraying Baso knew where Motang Rua was hiding. Depart Kraying Baso to Raka, Indonesia, the place where Motang Rua carried out his guerrilla warfare tactics. Kraying Baso also recounted the torture of the Adak Ponko family. Feeling sorry to hear about the torture of the Ponko family, Motang Rua also asked Kraying Baso to release a white rooster alive in Ponko. This was a way to get rid of Motang Rua's supernatural powers. This power makes him invisible to fellow humans and Beko Papo. Kraying Baso also did what was asked of it. Motang Rua could finally be seen by the Dutch and others in plain view. Motang Rua then surrendered to the Dutch headquarters in Puni Routing. After surrendering, the Dutch put Motang Rua and his friends on trial. Via the port of Rio, Motang Rua and his friends were taken to Endi, then to Kupang and finally in Makassar to be tried. The Dutch court in Makassar decided that Motang Rua and his younger brother, Nankang Laki Rani alias Kraying Bakok, were sentenced to 20 years in prison in Batavia, Jakarta. Then Motang Rua and his younger brother were transferred to Sawa Lanto to be employed in the coal mining. At that time, the people of ACEH under the leadership of Teuku Umar and Kut Ny Ding began to fight against the Dutch colonial government. As a Dutch prisoner, Motang Rua was ordered to help the Dutch quell the Akanese resistance movement. However, instead of helping the Dutch, according to Wiley Graziers, Motang Rua actually helped Teuku Umar and Kut Ny Ding's troops. As a result, Motang Rua was banished to Saigon, Vietnam. Motang Rua fell in love with a Vietnamese girl and then married her. The Vietnamese girl is the daughter of a friend of a Dutch merchant in Saigon. From that marriage, he had 3 children, namely Miss Koi, Suj and Guru. Motang Rua himself returned to Manggarai in 1927. At that time, Manggarai had become a kingdom under the reign of Raja Bagong, the second king of the Manggarai kingdom. Motang Rua returned via Ama. At that time, the construction of the Trans-Flores Road from Routing to Endi was in progress. Unexpectedly, Motang Rua meets Raja Bagong at Tengkuting. Due to Motang Rua's return, work on opening the road was temporarily halted. Raja Bagong and all the people then headed to Kina to carry out the Kaka Select traditional ceremony. How big Motang Rua's struggle was in opposing the invaders in the new Kaleo land and even defending the Indonesian nation through the participation of people's resistance in other areas. That's all for this video. Don't forget to like, comments and subscribe, my brother.